We're so happy to be with you again this week as we are going to use an open mic. This is the last week of Black History Month, and so we want to mention Black history as much as possible and stimulate you to let you know that for us, Black History Celebration is ongoing weekly. We are always doing that in the Voice and Viewpoint. I always remind you that Voice and Viewpoint in its 65th year is San Diego's oldest and only African American publication, available in 89 zip codes, 17 cities, the unincorporated areas in terms of print, but also now online where you may download our app in the Google or Apple store. Single copy sales, retail outlets, all of these are places that you can find the paper in addition to us making a free distribution to many of our churches, our senior centers, and our libraries in order to give you something that you can hold on to. This is an important time because as much as people are pushing social media, there's still room for print and the permanency of it. And so we're excited to be maintaining this legacy that we're engaged in. Happily joined with Dr. Leonard Thompson III, our partner in this, as we both reached out over the airways to not only San Diego and the country here, but we have international reach. And so we have gone from community to global without abandoning community. Dr. Thompson.
Well, good morning to you all, and thank you, Dr. Warren. It is good to be back here on a Wednesday evening. Again, an open mic format that we're going to go with today. And the open mic format, we're going to center it around African American history, Black history, and Black History Month. This is the final week of Black History Month, and we want to make sure that if you have any questions or if you have any comments, please put it in the feed. We're live at godradio1.com, where you can hear us on the app as well as you can hear us on Facebook. And if you have a comment that you would like to come on tonight, realize that it could be a comment or a statement or a question, but it will not be a platform where you can be able to go on and on and on. But if you come on with a question, we will do our best to answer it. Our number here is 858-251-6111. Again, 858-251-6111. Dr. Warren, I kind of actually really just want to go forward. Although it's Black History Month, I kind of want to go to the White House right quick.
Okay.
And I have to say that I had a very sad viewing on social media of a Black History celebration at the White House. And the sad thing about it was jam-packed. All these people cooing and cawing and wearing hats, and we here, we up in the house and everything else that nature, showing the door where the president's going to come through. And they did all this stuff and very mockerish, if you will. I didn't say N-word, I said mockerish, because they were mocking people and taking pictures. It was very undignified. And then the sad thing about it, the young man who was doing all the talking, he's a on-air host and everything like that, doing all the talking, who was a Trump mega supporter. When Donald Trump got up to speak, he said, hey, you right there. You come on up here. Hey, this guy was really supportive of us. Never, ever could say his name. He was this, hey, you. And the guy got up there, we just want to thank King Trump. I mean, he had all that energy. And the sad thing about it is, and all of that, and he did not even know your name or even asked you your name. Or he said, tell me your name once again. All of that support he gave him, and yet and still, he didn't even respect him enough to call him or even ask him his name.
And he probably missed that. You know, I've seen Black people act that way at the White House many times over the years. And it's unfortunate that they get so enamored with being there that they miss the significance of it. I remember Jerry was there with a panel when George Bush Sr. was president, and we spent a lot of time preparing the days before for that roundtable meeting with elements of the Black press, because it was a very special time to really make some points. And I didn't go, she went, to this particular meeting. We've been there together many times before. And so, but she told me how in the big room they were sitting around the table and spinning in the chairs and happy to be there, but nobody had anything substantive to say. And so she basically led the conversation in terms of issues. And when the staff called that the time was up, she turned to the president and said, I'd like to see the living quarters. And the staff was saying, oh, we don't have time. And the president turns to her and takes her by the arm and says, oh, come on, we'll show it to you. And that's why we have that picture of her and him standing in front of the picture of George Washington in the White House. And so it's always been sad that we forget who we are when we get stroked sometimes. And I don't know what the answer to that is for us in terms of remembering that we represent more than ourselves in terms of what we do. And so this was a sad day. I was pleased to see that the Super Bowl winners, the Eagles, turned down the invitation to come to the White House. The owner turned down the invitation. He didn't want to be a part of that. And I think that it's been a very telling time as Elon Musk continues to run through the government with Trump's permission. Today, I think, was an embarrassing time for Trump when he had his first cabinet meeting, and Musk dominated the meeting, standing, the only person ill-dressed for the occasion. I think at one point the president had to kind of pull his chain. Their relationship is not going to last long term. And I'm joining the American people in blaming the Congress because the Congress does have things that it can do. Just because they're only a 3-vote majority in the House and probably 2 in the Senate. And as Hakeem Jeffries mentioned, I'm glad they finally realized it. There's such a thing in the House as a discharge petition. And if you get 18 members to sign that petition, you can bring any matter up on the floor regardless of how the speaker feels about it. And so we're doing this budget. The cuts are going. Last week we had the embarrassing removal of 4-star General Charles Brown as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. In a board meeting yesterday with our foundation people in New Jersey, one of our community college presidents was talking about the pressure that he's been put under to abandon everything that is ethnically identifiable in terms of money, time, recognition. Here in San Diego, I know with the Housing Commission, they have changed the title of the person who handled most of those ethnic issues, I guess, in order to keep that attorney employed on the staff. So this is a very serious time. A lot of us missed the significance of Monday when Joy Reid was fired from MSNBC, and the firing, of course, was in line with Trump. Katie Fang, Asian, that had a primetime show, she was removed as well. And Jose Diaz was on in the day. He was reassigned, but Joy was fired. And the only person on the staff that spoke up was Rachel Maddox. And of course, Rachel, to talk about disparity in income, Rachel has remaining, even though she took a salary reduction of $5 million, she still has a $25 million a year contract for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And Joy was only getting $3 million.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, of course, Don Lemons got into it with, what's her name? Megyn Kelly, because Kelly was rejoicing over Joy being fired. And in the midst of their argument, the Lemons told her to go F herself. And so that got as nasty as it could be. And so today we have a new host there in terms of Michael Steele, former chair of the Republican Party, former lieutenant governor of Maryland, always a very sharp guest on MSNBC. And I have done an editorial which called it the scenario of the MSNBC ethnic cleansing, because that's exactly what happened. It was ethnic cleansing. with a what do you call it? When they shuffle
Reorg,
the organ
reorganization.
yeah, but they shuffle the coin around under the shell game.
Oh, the shell game.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
shell game was putting some people in positions,
yeah,
and then we see that Lester Hope, behind all of this, has retired or resigned from CBS, and so this is an important time. But I don't want to see us as a people get hung up in that. I want us to look at the fact that we still represent a $2 trillion economy, that we still have elements. I mean, I suggested, Joy, you know, you could go over to the Black Press. We got a daily show, and we reach a few million people, and the folks who support you are going to take their dollars and follow you. And so these are times that we can't just be sitting back waiting to see what's next.
yeah. I wanted to show this video, and I wanted to see what's your thoughts about this video, because this was released today as an AI rendering. So I'm gonna play it right quick.
Tunnels coming to set you free, bringing the light for all to see. No more tunnels, no more fear. Trump Gaza is finally here. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza number one. Trump Gaza shining bright, golden future, a brand new light. Feast and dance, the deal is done. Trump Gaza number one.
What do you think about what do you think about that?
Well, I think as all other people have seen this and reacted to it, they are appalled at it. If it was anybody else as president, he would be under a serious indictment based on the emolument clause, using the office to make money, no longer bothering to even engage in a separation of personal interests. All he cares about in Gaza, he and Netanyahu come together because Netanyahu would like for Gaza to become a parking lot, and Trump sees all real estate as a business opportunity.
Yeah, and also, I showed that because this is a sad, basic genocide. No care that there are people that is their land. We're going to own it, and I'm like saying, so now you're making the United States a real estate broker, and what really bothered me is that even with the war in the Ukraine, he's trying to make a peace deal, but making sure that he can get all the mineral rights.
Well, they already signed a contract for him.
Wow.
That U.S. is going to get the mineral rights.
Wow.
And so I don't know how that's going to play with Russia trying to get the land back. And I don't know if Russia's giving them mineral rights in other places in Russia. I don't know. There were 11 countries at the dissolving of the USSR that broke away from Russia. And of course, Putin's objective, no matter who he talks to or what he says, his goal is to reconstitute the USSR. Mm-hmm. And so Ukraine is just the first stop, and he's going to go after all those other countries. And Trump doesn't care. I think at some point it's going to dawn on people that Trump has a level of mental illness and that he is a sociopath, as his niece always said, who is incapable of feeling any remorse or concern for people. Okay, even when the plane crashed into the helicopter, all he could talk about was the number of souls that were on board, which is a very interesting choice of words coming from a satanic standpoint. But he doesn't care. He doesn't care. And I think that there's going to be a lot more suffering, and his base is going to have to start feeling the pain before they stop trying to defend what's taking place.
Yeah, and this, when they say certain things just don't make any logical sense, his appointments to the FBI makes no logical sense whatsoever, and it seems like he's empowering anarchists to come in and be disruptors in the nation overall.
Well, that would be consistent with Hitler's approach in Germany, because what that means is that those people who are not afraid to be lawbreakers and to be violent will, at the drop of a hat, do his bidding against those who rise up against him. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of fear is there. We see Republican members catching it from town meetings, and now the suggestion has come out from the leadership saying don't hold anymore. As if you can stop the people by not meeting, but the people don't need them. The people can still hold the meetings. They can do recall. They can prepare for the next election cycle.
This was a very interesting thing that I saw this morning, and they started talking about President McKinley, and they said that he was a terrorist president, and he was going to charge people up to 50% and all these different things, and then they ended off the whole entire thing, and they assassinated him, you know. And I'm like, wow, that y'all got some real strange ways of saying sending these subliminal messages out there. And my biggest thing is that I'm not saying assassinate anyone or kill anyone. What I'm saying is everybody must do their job. Congress, get off the cuff, do your job. Senators, get off the cuff and do your job. I have never found so many weak-minded people that they are afraid of one man.
Well, not only that, it gets to be illogical when you ask intelligent people who are elected representatives if Russia started the war in Ukraine, and they won't answer the question. And everybody on the planet knows that Russia invaded Ukraine 3 years ago this week, but they won't answer the question. They're afraid to answer the question. They're more afraid of Trump, and now they're doing the Russian policy line when they are elected U.S. representatives who took an oath of office.
Yeah.
And so these are disturbing times. The economy is not getting better. People are now fighting over eggs. Okay, gas is going to go up. It's not coming down. Prices are up. The discord is trickling down to us where people are now afraid to spend money because they don't know what's going to happen in terms of what they have. If they are a nonprofit or if they have government dollars, the government is moving to freeze money and to take things from folks when there's no legal authority. And now some of them are even quietly begging Musk to give their districts a pass, which is ridiculous. When you as the people, Congress, you have the right to call him in. And you could even have the authority to lock him up.
Yeah. And so as we go back to our theme tonight is Black history. When you know your history, you know your greatness. But if you don't know your history, it's bound to repeat itself, and it can be worse the second time around. I think that we as African American people have to say one thing, how we have survived in spite of everything. We are not a welfare community. Contrary to popular belief, there are more people that are Caucasian on welfare than African Americans. You know, there are more farmers on welfare than African Americans. There are more banks on welfare than African Americans. There's more car bailouts than African American. So when we talk, all it is semantics on what welfare looks like. When they say welfare, they think of people of color, not knowing that there's more Caucasian, but they call the other one subsidies. Subsidies might sound beautiful, and it might sound really good, but in the end, subsidies is no other form than welfare.
That's right. Subsidies are welfare, and this country is loaded with them, from the Bureau of Land Management giving thousands of acres to white cattle barons who don't pay taxes on the land and just lease it at a minimum, and yet they have free use. Even when you go in the grocery store and you see Donald Duck orange juice, the guy that owns Donald Duck is from the county in Florida where we had our paper, all right? And he doesn't own the land, he leases that land.
Yeah.
And then South Central Florida, many people are surprised to know, it's not only oranges, but it's also cattle country.
Yeah.
And they're leasing land, but black folks are not getting the leases. I know my late wife and I, we tried so hard to share with black businesses and black communities the notices from the Bureau of Land Management when land came up for lease, so that we could help black folks make bids for it, help black farmers make bids for the land. And we just couldn't get it. Even in San Diego County, there are people who have gotten over. There's land that's leased from the county that people are making money on, the horse ranches and all kinds of stuff, and yet we're not getting it.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things about it is that this is a key pivotal time for us as African American and people of color, if ever before in our nation, because this is the time that we're going to have to stand up and really use our economic power to let our voice be heard. Now, we don't need to protest, we don't need to march, we don't need to do a formal boycott. You can do all the talking that you want to with your pocketbook.
Well, that's why I call it a SBC, the Selective Buying Campaign. And all we have to do is just reassess how we spend.
Yeah.
Stay out of Popeyes, stay out of Jack in the Box, stay out of Burger King. For God's sake, stay out of McDonald's. And if we can stay out of those places, then we can make some economic impact. All right? Now, let's look at our habits. The amount of money we spend on cigarettes, $12, $15 a pack. The amount of money we spend on alcohol, the amount of money we spend on potato chips and candy and all kinds of unhealthy stuff that prices are going up on, and we're still buying. All we have to do is just close our wallets, do an economic fast. I didn't say a boycott. We just need to shop with those who support us. So if Costco is supporting us and Walmart and Sam's Club aren't, then we need to be shopping at Costco's as long as they support us.
Yeah, and then also use innovation. If you're a person that loves potato chips, go get you a potato slicer to get those thin slices. Go get you a deep fryer and start making some homemade chips with some different flavors and everything. And before you know it, you actually have a business that is going to continue to supply you and be a blessing to you. And that's what we used to do back in the day. We found how to make adversity actually bring in income.
Yes, we did. And we can still do that again. Most of us are A1C is too high. We're type 2 diabetics because of eating habits, and we don't even know it. And it's impacting our health. It's putting us at risk for strokes, heart attacks, all of those things because of lifestyle choices. We need to walk more. We need to eat less, many of us. Which would make a tremendous difference in terms of our health. And so these are things that we just kind of gloss over. We don't want to focus on. And we talk about coming together, but here in this town alone, we have people who call themselves leaders who won't talk to other folks, who won't pick up the phone, who are concerned about their own little fiefdom. And I always use this old Indian expression that he who leads where no one follows merely goes for a walk. And we got a whole bunch of people out here walking by themselves thinking they're going somewhere, thinking that they're doing something when they aren't.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think as African Americans, we need to let go of things that are holding us back. Sometimes we won't work with each other, won't talk with each other because something that happened 10 years ago. And I believe that if you're not willing to sit down and just handle whatever's going forward, let's let it go and let's move forward and let's do what we have to do. In this time in this season, you know how they say God is watching you and his eyes is in every place, beholding the good and the evil. Well, this is a bigger thing. Our children are watching us, and our children are seeing how we respond to each other, and they're carrying on our legacy, not even knowing what they're carrying on. We have to do better, and that means that not only pointing the finger at everybody else, but then saying, how can we do better? What can we do? I believe, like the Bible says, if you got an ought against your brother or sister, go to them. If they don't receive, go get some more people to come with you. If they don't receive, take it to the elders of the church, But eventually you can shake the dust from your feet. You know what I'm saying? And some people just want to be mad. And so if they want to be mad, we're just going to let them be mad, pray for them, and keep it pushing because there's so much we have to do for this community and for the nation.
And it's just a few of us carrying all of us. It's always been that way. We might be 3 to 6% in San Diego County, but I bet you at the end of the day, it's less than 100 of us that are really doing anything. And we're still letting others define us. Other people publish who our most influential folks are, as if we can't determine that on our own. And so we're still being pimped.
Well, the funny thing about that, Dr. Warren, is that they publish it, they make the money off of it, but again, we get a picture, but they get thousands of dollars to do those editions, and my thing is that in the long run, we have to learn to toot our own horns and define our own thing, and not only feel like we're defined when we make the cover of a Time magazine or a People magazine. What about the excitement of being a part of Jet or Ebony or Essence or The Voice and Viewpoint? Still, those are historical printed material that we're part of and should carry just as much weight as any other magazine that we're in.
Well, look at the ultimate insult. Joy Reid was just recognized by the NAACP Image Awards. A couple of days later, she's let go from a network, okay? And so it's up to us to determine what that's going to really mean.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the ability to harness all of that skill that she had and to still put that voice to work in such a way that it can't be reached.
Well, I have to say that Joy Reid, I knew that her time was short when she basically called what Trump was doing a high stakes robbery, and she said, you heard it here first. If you want to rob a bank, you get rid of the people that know the system, so that if they don't know the system, they don't know when they're getting robbed. And so she said, Donald Trump is successfully making sure that people don't know the system. And so they can come in and hijack organizations and departments and everything else, and you'll never know that you're being robbing blind because you don't know the system. When she said that, I knew then that Trump was going to do his best to make sure she gets off the station.
Well, look at what else has happened in America. Going back to George Washington, we were never intended to have a king. And yet, in recent days, they've been referring to him as King Trump, okay? And he really wants to be a king and not president. I mean, to him, Mar-a-Lago is more significant than the White House, is more grandiose than the whole bit, but he didn't build it. The Post family built that place, and they gave it to the federal government to get a tax break when they were coming under tremendous fire. And afterwards, he bought the thing out of bankruptcy. So, everything that he's done has a shady piece to it. And so, but I think we need to move on we need to acknowledge, tag what he's doing, look at what our strategy is to counter it, and go to the next level in terms of whatever is on the agenda.
Yes.
Now, you and I have tried to encourage people to do that with Black Men and Women United. We ask people to come on board. Every week we send out notice to 120 some people. We get 15 or 20. We got folks who they don't have time, but the moment they get called a nigger and they get run into a situation where they're coming after their job, then they're going to be coming to us wanting us to rescue and help them. And, the old saying is, you didn't say anything when they came for others, and then when they came for you, there was no one to speak.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we wake people up.
Well, the biggest thing is that celebrating those that do come, and I always feel that certain people are not ready, and if they're not ready, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? I would rather for you to get ready or be ready, and sometimes just be in the space itself will really begin to bless you and show you, what you either do know, what you don't know, or what you can contribute. And so that's just my goal this year. And I have to say this, Dr. Warren, I'm teasing everybody. I'm going to be 60 years old this year. And there's certain things that I have made a decision upon. And one of the decisions is that I'm no longer going to pull people along the journey. Either you're going to be on the journey and we're going to work together and we're going to work together and we're going to do together. But if you don't want to do together, then I'm going to let you go on your own journey, but I'm not going to force you for your success anymore. I think a lot of times in trying to help, you take people out of their comfort zone, or you take people out of where they see themselves. Now, some people, God might say to you, sow into them because they just need to have the experience and they'll be okay. And some people feel like you owe it to them. to do certain things for them, and we have to come out of that grandiose idea that we're entitled to something. You know, in this time in this season, the entitlement mentality has to change, and we have to be empowered to do what we're supposed to be doing.
I would agree with you 100%, Dr. Thompson. And I admire what you're saying. I wish when I was 60, I'd had the thought process that you're reflecting right now, because the years get to be important. I mean, this year I'll be 80.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to be very selective with my time and my energy, and more appreciative every day of just being on this side of the ground and being able to try and make a contribution. And I think that if we can catch that while we're still young enough and we still have the strength to make a contribution, it can be significant. I always like what it says in Ecclesiastes when the writer says, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil day draws nigh." And that's when you're strong and viable. It's so significant. And we have things happening here. We saw this week that we've had at least 4 flu deaths among teenagers. We see in Texas a measles outbreak. We see tuberculosis issue in Missouri, I believe. And then we got someone at Health and Human Services against vaccines. And so we're going to have even more outbreaks with the diseases that have been conquered because people are going down this path. And this is a path of destruction, I believe, that we're on. I just want to move back to the Black history for a moment. This
Yes.
week in the Voice and Viewpoint, we are acknowledging Black judges with an emphasis on the 13 Black judges we have in San Diego County. And it's so important because the judges are the people that make the difference as the lawgivers in terms of where we are when people seek to use the judicial process under Article 3. And it's not just a matter of the Supreme Court, but it's also federal and state courts and appellate courts. And San Diego County has the second largest trial area in the state of California with 135 judicial positions, 19 commissioners, but only 13 African-American judges. So this week we highlight those judges. At least 3 to 4 of them are in presiding judge positions with authority. And then we acknowledge that we have 4 living retired Black judges in the person of Judge Joe Littlejohn, Administrative Law Judge Tina Littlejohn, Sharon Majors, who came out of the DA's office and became a judge, and Judge Randa Trapp. And so these are 3 Black women who are judges that are still with us. And we have an opportunity to recognize and remember. And there are a number of exciting young Black people coming. Most people don't realize that in the early days of the country, one did not have to be a judge to be a lawyer in order to be in the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to be a lawyer in order to be a judge. And so, and the first Black man that became a judge was a man by the name of Wentworth Criswell in 1768, I believe, and he was elected to a local position. Now today, our judges are appointed initially, and then they run for re-election at the end of those initial terms in terms of local positions. And people who are lawyers can run for judge because tradition has made being a lawyer a very important part of the process. But we didn't get the first Black lawyer who actually did a case before a jury until 1844. And so to this day, we don't have many Black attorneys or judges in this nation. And it's amazing how, with all of the people thinking they wanted to be lawyers, how this has worked out. And so we want to highlight this because if we're going to be before the courts more, then we need to have more of us in the jury box And we need to know who those people are among us that are able to represent with distinction and win cases in doing so. Now, Judge Earl B. Gilliam was the first black judge in San Diego County. He went on to be the first on the federal bench, but we also had on the federal bench serving with distinction Judge John Houston, who recently retired. And so we've been across the board. And when the California Association of Black Attorneys meets here in April, they're going to induct two of our own into their Hall of Fame, LaChala Wilson and Randy Jones. And so we need to be appreciative other than when we get in trouble. We're trying to move the needle some. And that's, again, the job of us as a trusted messenger to share. So we ask you to pick up the paper, give us your views, go online, send us an email, respond to what we're doing so that we can be helpful.
Yeah, and as we look around, just in our own very city, one of the things that we want to encourage people is to understand about your community. Like a lot of people say, well, I come from this city and that city, but I believe that we are the only city in the nation that actually has a Malcolm X library.
We might well be. And that's interesting because the sculpture that did the Malcolm X statue in the library was the first black astronaut, Ed Dwight, and he is the one that did our sculpture in Patterson for the Underground Railroad. And if one goes on YouTube and Googles black astronauts, you will see that Captain Ed Dwight in the Air Force was slated to become one of the first black astronauts nominated by President Kennedy, but went on after that didn't materialize to become a sculptor. And he's done the amazing Underground Railroad sculptures in Detroit, South Carolina, all over the country. His work stands out in terms of what he's done. So these are things we need to know in terms of who people are.
Yeah, and one of the things that I began to think about is even like the parachute. The parachute was actually literally developed here in San Diego by a black man. You know what I'm saying? And it's so important that we know the history of even our own city to know that there's so much that we don't know.
Well, did he test it himself first?
Well, yes, and it was very popular in the military. Were using it, but again, the military ultimately somebody else said, "Well, you can't buy from a black man," so he literally had to have a front man to sell his parachutes to the military.
Well, that's interesting because the parachute has come a long ways from the one that was used in World War II, which was big and bulky, and they had to pack their own on the ships and everything, to the ones we have today that we see in the movies where you can pretty much use those ropes and land where you want to in the whole bits. That's significant. But, also, we were the ones that developed the air brake, if you will. We developed the traffic light, if you will. We were there with Alexander Graham Bell in terms of making the light bulb and participating in all of that. And we held a number of patents because it's always been the people who did the work, who did the inventions, because they were always thinking of ways to do the job better.
And check this out. I just pulled this up. It says the Pacific Parachute Company. The person was Howard Skippy Smith. They said he was born in Alabama as Howard Skippy Smith, 1913 to 2003. Moved to California in the 1930s and launched a successful career in skydiving. He and his partners, Mac Skippy Garland, performed spectacular parachute jumps in the air shows around the LA area. In 1941, Smith began working for Standard Parachute in San Diego as a parachute packer and inspector. He was the first African-American hired by the company, which was a major defense contract for the United States government. Smith went on to start his own company, Pacific Parachute, which operated as a subcontractor for the Standard Parachute. To finance the venture, Smith partnered with entertainer Eddie Anderson, who played the role of Rochester on Jack Benny's show.
Wow.
He also brought in other celebrities, including boxer Joe Louis and performer Bill Bojangles Robinson, to promote the plant. Smith recruited his half brother Herman Warren, all right, a businessman of the Evanston Wolverine football team, to supervise the manufacturing operations here in San Diego.
There you go.
And so I always want to say that there's little tidbits all around your city
Yes.
of how African Americans and black people made a difference in your city. So I always ask the question, would America be America without the African American?
No, America would not be. There's no question. And it's so important, those little tidbits, because even when you go up to Julian, the Roberts had the first hotel up there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when you go to Old Town, as Chuck Amber spent his life making people aware in terms of PICO, what was done there and who we are. We have always been present. And I like to remind people, as much as we have a love affair with the term cowboys was really a term that was meant for black men. If you think about it, black men were always called boys. Many had a unique ability with animals, especially some of the slaves who came over, and people realized that they could handle horses and cattle and the whole bit. But when you talked about the cattle business in the West, the white men were cattlemen, and those who did the work were cowboys. Even when they were white, they were still called cowboys. And so that term caught. And if you watch the movie Tombstone, you know, they were the first organized crime entity. Mm-hmm. They were called the Cowboys. They wore the red sash. I don't think they were Bloods, but they wore. And so the history is fascinating in terms of how we stood up. When I was dealing with the judges, it was the first black woman to graduate from to become a lawyer in this country was a graduate of Howard Law School in like 1868 or something. Mm-hmm. All right, and so we are everywhere, Dr. Thompson. We have been doing everything that there is.
And you know the beautiful thing about it, and yet we have done so many great things, but there have been so many other cultural groups that have contributed to what makes America American. I just would say to everybody, you know, we say we want to be a melting pot, but we take away from the beauty of us being a melting pot. I'm just really honest, you know, could America be in America without that good old rolled tacos and guacamole, or that good Chinese food, or that good Caribbean food? You know, there's just so much that people and culture brings to make your environment so much better.
Well, let's not just stop there, you know, because the Europeans were still eating with their hands and wiping themselves on their clothes when the Crusades took place. Mm-hmm. All right. And so what did we learn from the Moors who were there? You look all around San Diego and you see the architecture, Balboa, those arches. Wherever you see those arches, they're not Spanish. They were Moorish before they were Spanish in terms of the arches that we see.
Yes.
Okay. And it was the Moors that gave us the number system. Mm-hmm. It was the Moors that taught us to eat with a knife and fork. Mm-hmm. All right. And so this country is built on copying it. If you talked about a melting pot, you would have a pot of New England clam chowder soup without anything in it, because they want you to think that the melting pot had everything white. But that wasn't the case. It was the color that the people brought, the taste. I mean, we made it, and we're still making it happen today.
Yeah, and we have to also move away from the acquiry complex, or how we go about things. You know, I have never in my life seen people come into space and just rewrite history. You know, we got now the Gulf of Mexico has been renamed, and anybody who won't call it the new name is now considered to be an anarchist and somebody that's not going to be it. But I just heard that he just changed one of the highest mountains in Alaska to Mount McKinley.
Yeah, President Obama had changed the name of the mount to, I can't remember. It's Denzali,
Yeah.
whatever it is, something like that. And he came and reversed that and made it Mount McKinney. And he's got, he's just running rampant all over. We know we're not going to acquire Iceland. You're trying to take the Panama Canal back. It's just in every place. You want to give drilling rights to all of your buddies, but the reality is we already lead the world in terms of oil production, which most people didn't know, and natural gas. And what happens if you continue? You're going to flood the market, and if you flood the market, then supply and demand is going to kick in, and prices are going to go down because the supply is too great. And so he could quietly replenish our reserves, but everything that Trump does is based on a lie. And an effort to blame anyone who came before him that didn't do what he thought should have been done.
Yeah.
And that is going to be the demise of this country. But at the same time, from a spiritual standpoint, Dr. Thompson, I believe that Donald Trump is on a spiritual mission. And I think that he is a part of the judgment coming against America for all that we've done. And that decay that we have to experience has to come from within, and it's happening before our very eyes. And so, again, the latest poll says that in recent years, those people who are Christians have dropped from 73% to 68% of the folks in this country, with 29% not claiming any spiritual affiliation whatsoever. And, I hope it doesn't take another great tragedy for us to open the Bible to 2 Chronicles 7:14 and then start reading, if my people are called by my name would humble themselves. Because so far there's nothing humbling about those who are in power. It's all about destruction and those who support it. And at the very essence of all of this is a very simple term called racism. And it is phenomenal that America, built on racism, has survived as long as it has because the people who have been the victims of racism were so morally and spiritually correct that they struggled to do what was right in spite of that. And I think that that's one of those missing elements in terms of showing how we as a people, and people of color in particular, have been one of the foundational glues holding this country together through our moral correctness and our belief in God and the challenge that comes with that.
And Dr. Warren, one of the things that I think we have to really challenge America, challenge African Americans, is to go back to our first love, and literally stand up and not be motivated by just what we see, not just be talking about it, but let's really be about it. Let's stand for something and let's move forward. And one of the things that we go back, and you call it selective buying power?
Selective Buying Campaign, SBC.
We need to go with that selective buying campaign. And on the 28th, we need to reserve our dollars for our community.
Well, that's the start of it, because we don't want that to be a one-day thing. America measures how it's doing with quarterly earning reports in terms of the economy. And so we believe that if we start withholding our dollars in a number of the areas and shopping in terms of what's best for us with our limited income or reduction in purchasing power through inflation, that we will see prices drop. We will see shares go down. It's very interesting that when Target decided to remove our black products and stuff from the shelves, the shareholders stepped in and said, put those items back because that's where our income is. And we need to do our homework, because Target owns Marshalls, and there's another home entity All of these things come together. PepsiCo company owns Frito-Lay's,
Taco Bell,
KFC, Pizza Hut, all of those things that are good to use a soda to wash them down. All right. And we always see the soft drink industry changing as people become more aware of the sugar element. They're going to safe drinks, energy drinks. You see them trying to find healthy snacks in terms of the revamping. So there's a process taking place. All we're doing is helping the process by helping ourselves in terms of health.
Yeah. And so lots of things that we have to look at. And I think, Dr. Warren, we also have to pay attention to what's happening to us medically. Let's end off with the whole vaccine, measles outbreaks, and we still have Texas believing that vaccinations are a conspiracy.
Well, not only that, Dr. Thompson, I've got some people in my church, and we have some people on Black Men and Women United who emphatically tell you they don't believe in the vaccine. We know some people in this community have had COVID 3 and 4 times, and their attitude now is, I don't need the shot because I got an immune system. And as Dr. Robinson, our resident physician on Black Men and Women United, he makes it clear, getting the vaccine doesn't mean you're not going to get COVID, but it's the difference between getting COVID and going in the hospital and maybe dying of respiratory as opposed to getting COVID and recovering. And so all of us that are probably over 30, we have that vaccination mark on our arms from where we got the shots when we were kids, and that helped us avoid all of these things, polio and the whole bit that were out there killing people. And now we're getting back to the point that we know more than the scientists. And we cannot use the Tuskegee experiment as an excuse for not getting vaccinated because most of us have never read the history of the experiment and how it was done. But if you look at COVID, remember, it was a Black research doctor who discovered the vaccine and made it possible. And so we're not called to be stupid. But we will grab myths and pieces off of social media like they're gospel, and yet we won't listen to what's in front of us. And so that's the issue. Those are the challenges. And some of us would rather die than be corrected. And that's going to happen too.
And then we also have to realize is that and with all the trusted messengers and the people that are out there, you can kind of select what vaccination you take now. You don't just have to take any vaccination. You could do your research and even find out the ingredients of all the vaccines, So I just want to encourage people. I told everybody I took the flu shot, and I done had the flu twice. and the doctor said, well, you had the flu twice, but you didn't get hospitalized.
Right.
And they're saying that people that are at high risk, be it that of their age, anybody over 50, or size, or any health challenges, you have to be very, very mindful that this flu is very, very tough this year, and many people are getting it, and it's having so many different strands. So you could get it. I got it in December, and at the end of January, I had another strand.
Well, I had pneumonia at the beginning of the pandemic, and didn't know it. It just snuck up on me. Passed out. Next thing I know, I'm in the hospital for a week, in isolation, and then I'm told later, if you had gotten COVID during this point, you would have died. And this is the second time I've had it, pneumonia. So we need to take advantage of the knowledge that God has put before us. When the people were being bitten by the poisonous snakes and Moses went to God on their behalf, that's when God told him to make that brass serpent on a stick and raise it up, and anybody who looked up would be healed. And of course, some people wanted to argue, well, why are we going to look up at a snake on a stick? And that snake on a stick is a symbol of medicine today. And so we need to be wise enough to know that for what we don't know, God has made provision, and we can argue if we want to, but God was here before we came, and He's going to be here when we're gone, and we have an opportunity to do something for someone other than ourselves during this period, and I think that's important.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, let's be responsible with information. Let's ask the right questions, and let's continue to work with one another, encourage one another. As a part of Black history, the one thing that we saw in history is that African Americans came together to make a change. We are always going to be stronger together, and we always have to learn how to not only respect our elders, but respect the young people that are coming up, and also the people that are in the middle. The biggest thing, I think, more than anything else, every day, Dr. Warren, as an African American man, I know I learn what to do and what not to do, and that can come from anything from a little baby all the way up to a senior citizen. I learn, but every time the key thing is I am learning. We always must make sure that we maintain that dual learning and that reciprocal teaching. As well as you are teaching, be willing to learn from somebody else that might have something different to share with you. I share with this all the time. These little babies, 4 and 5 years old, are teaching their grandparents how to use their telephone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so the young shall lead them, but then there's the wisdom of the old that will sit there, and as they're teaching them, they're learning, but they're also teaching them too.
Well, as we get ready to conclude, let's keep our mind on several things. The budget process is going on. The independent budget analyst has put out some figures. The mayor is retaking control in terms of being a strong mayor in this city. The police department still has issues. I want to thank Tasha Williamson for her latest piece to us in terms of the selective use of camera footage by the police chief in terms of scenarios that involve the use of deadly force. We don't want to wait until people we consider important get killed. I also want to remind us that there are schools, like we have a big piece on a charter school issue. There are schools that have school personnel who are unlawfully interacting with parents, trying to restrict their activity. And I want to remind people that some 4 or 5 years ago, Black Men and Women United got with the district attorney and created a special task force that's designed to take complaints against school personnel who are operating in violation of their sworn duties as school officials. And so we need to be able to report those things directly, and we're going to put that information out there again. And contrary to what the school board tried to do, creating a task force to make it look like it was all about sexual assault, that's not the case. If you are a parent and you having difficulties with school people, you have rights. And so we want to use our rights during this difficult time to be vocal so that we all survive. We can all survive together, or we can perish as fools. Let's make it that we stay together.
So this is from the desk of the editor with Dr. John Warren. We're going to encourage you to definitely follow us on all of our social media platforms, from the Voice and Viewpoint to GOD Radio. We want to encourage you to download our apps, both for the Voice and Viewpoint and GOD Radio. Follow us, the Voice and Viewpoint. Sign up for their news bites. Their news bites are coming out quite often, and they're full of pertinent information. And even if you don't live in the city of San Diego, the national impact of the newspaper and the world impact of the newspaper is being felt all over. So we want to encourage you all. Continue to tap in, continue to connect, and if we can be of any help to you, please let us know. Make sure that you write your letters to the editor so that they can be published in the newspaper as well as share with us. Dr. Warren, any final words?
Just be blessed and put God first in what you do.
All right, y'all be blessed. Have a wonderful night.